What's up, movie fans? Guys, a few months ago, I made what I would say is probably now one of my favorite videos on this channel. My horror movie video. If you haven't seen that video, basically, I had never really seen that many horror movies in my life, so in that video, I picked out what I consider to be the 20 most iconic horror movies ever made, and I watched all 20 of them for the first time, and I did kind of this long ranking review of all of them, and it was a really fun video. I had a great time with it. I would highly recommend you watch it if you haven't, because it's genuinely one of my favorite videos I've made on this channel. But spoilers for that video, in the end, my favorite movie on that list ended up being Alien. I absolutely loved the first Alien movie, and so one of my priorities after I finished that video was to watch the entire Alien franchise for the first time. And so, today, I am going to be ranking all 7 mainline Alien movies from the worst to the best. Please note, I said 7 mainline Alien movies. That does not include the Alien vs. Predator movies. I haven't seen those yet. I am planning on watching those movies, but I'm going to do it when I eventually get to my Predator ranking, which is currently on my list. The only reason I didn't watch them for this video was because I figured it just didn't make sense to watch those movies without first having the context of the Predator franchise. And also, apparently the Alien vs. Predator movies aren't even canon to the Alien franchise, but they are to the Predator franchise. So, yeah, when I eventually make a Predator ranking, I will include those movies on that list. But for this list, I'm only talking about the 7 main Alien movies. So, with all of that being said, let's just get straight into the list. Number 7, my least favorite Alien movie. I'm gonna be real here, this was not a hard choice. Number 7 is Alien Cubed. I am not calling it by its proper name. If you put something stupid on your movie poster, that's how I'm going to say the name of your movie. We learned this lesson with Fant4Stick. If you haven't seen Alien Cubed, spoilers. I'm not even going to try to talk about this movie without spoiling it, because I need to talk about what happens in the first 5 minutes of this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, the film decides to kill off the entire supporting cast of aliens off screen in the first 5 minutes. So, Newt, Hicks, and Bishop, all dead in the first 5 minutes of this movie. Bishop comes back for one scene later in the movie, but then he just dies again immediately, so it doesn't really matter. All 3 of them are dead. This movie came out back in 1992. People have had 30 years to process this information. I did not know that this movie was going to do this. When I watched it, I was watching this movie blind. I never knew that this movie did that. So I watched the first 5 minutes, and I was shocked that this movie actually did that. This movie actually took the supporting cast of its predecessor and just got rid of them all off screen. The worst thing that a movie sequel can possibly do, in my opinion, is undo the ending of the original. You can't just take the beautiful ending that Aliens had and say, nuh-uh, in the first 5 minutes of the next movie. That's insane. Can't believe that they did that. And so I had heard this movie was bad my entire life, but I always go into these bad movies like wanting to give them the benefit of the doubt and genuinely give them a chance. There are movies later on this list that a lot of people don't like that I really do like. This movie, as soon as that happened, I wasn't giving it the benefit of the doubt anymore. I hated this movie 5 minutes in. But the crazy thing is, this movie still sucks past those first 5 minutes. It's not just a problem with the opening. This entire movie is terrible. It's such a slow, drab film where it's just, you're in a prison with a bunch of characters I did not care about. The one new character who I did care about in this movie was Clemens, and the movie kills him off halfway through, so he doesn't even matter that much. This movie, like the first two Alien movies, have kind of this slow building tension, and that's what makes them scary, that's what makes them work. Nah, this movie just trades it out for cheap jump scares with this terrible looking CGI alien, a bunch of excessive gore. I hated everything about this movie. I was watching this movie in total disbelief over how bad it was. Credit where credit is due. I kind of like the ending of this movie where Ripley finds out that she has a xenomorph inside her, and so at the end of the movie, she sacrifices herself to basically kill off the xenomorphs once and for all. That's kind of a cool ending. I kind of liked that for an ending to the Alien franchise. Like, that makes sense. But you did not have to kill off the characters from the previous movies to get to that point. It's just, I really hate this movie. This is a movie where I hated it when I first watched it like a month or two ago, and it has just gotten worse with every passing day. I hate Alien Cubed. This is easily my least favorite movie on the list. Number 6, Alien Resurrection. So, this movie, funny story, this one also does the same exact thing that Alien Cube did, where it takes the ending of the predecessor and it says, nuh-uh, again, where suddenly, like, the last movie ended with Ripley sacrificing herself and the xenomorphs dying. Nope. This movie, 200 years later, Ripley has been cloned. The clone has her memories. Ripley's alive again. The xenomorphs are alive again. Ripley's some kind of human xenomorph hybrid. I don't even know. So this movie effectively said nuh-uh to Alien 3's ending, or Alien Cubed, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said its normal name. For me, I think that is absolutely hilarious. Like, I just said that I hate the fact that Alien Cubed did that to aliens, but because this movie does that to Alien Cubed, which is a movie that I hate, I thought that was kind of funny. Alien Resurrection is just such a stupid movie. Like, this is universally agreed upon to be the worst movie in the Alien franchise. I don't hate it as much as Alien Cubed, but it's just a stupid movie where all of the main characters act like over-the-top cartoon characters. You've got alien-human hybrid Ripley, who's just a weird character. You got an entire sequence where she plays basketball. This movie was written by Joss Whedon, so there's a lot of really, like, weird, quippy moments in here. Like, it's just a really weird, disjointed film that does not feel tonally consistent with the first two movies at all. And it all builds to this really weird ending where you've got like this weird xenomorph baby that just looks super weird and unsettling, and then you have like this whole sequence where Ripley is cuddling with the alien queen. Like, this is a weird movie, and it's not a very good movie, but I had way more fun with it than I did with Alien Cubed. And to this movie's credit, it's genuinely scarier than Alien Cubed. Like, I mean that. That sequence where all of the mercenaries are in the water and the xenomorph is chasing them, that was a cool sequence. That sequence with all of, like, the Ripley clones that just, like, look really creepy and unnatural, and Ripley is horrified by them and she burns them all. That sequence was one of the creepiest sequences in the whole franchise. So, yeah, not a good movie, but I don't hate it as much as Alien Cubed. Number 5, Prometheus. So, this is a really interesting movie to talk about. When I first watched this movie, I really didn't care for it. Like, I went on Letterboxd and I gave it like 2 stars. I was not a fan of this movie. Since then, I feel like I've warmed up to it a little bit more, but I would say it's a movie that I respect more than I actually like it. It's a very, very ambitious movie where it's a prequel to the original Alien that takes place like hundreds of years before. And this whole movie is a very ambitious story about this group of scientists going out into space to search for the origins of humanity. It's a very deep and complex movie that gets very, very philosophical. And I wasn't entirely into that when I watched this movie. To be honest, I'm going to say some stuff here, and I don't know how people are going to feel about it, because this movie has a lot of fans. I thought this movie was kind of pretentious. I thought it was a movie that thought it was smarter than it is. And I still kind of feel that to a certain extent, because the movie just feels like it's trying to be deeper than it really is. Like, humanity is searching for its creator. It finds its creator, spoilers, which is like this bald, pale alien. And then the bald, pale alien turns out to be a real jerk and he kills a bunch of them. That's this movie. And it seems to think that, like, that's, like, an incredibly deep storyline that's, like, warning you about, like, playing God and stuff. But I don't know. I just didn't really get that. Like, I hear a ton of people talking about how deep and philosophical this movie is, and I'm just not really on board with the stuff that they're saying. So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this movie and its story, but this movie is leagues better than the bottom two, because I would say that, like, technically, performance-wise, this movie is pretty good. Like, I thought all of the performances across the board were great. This movie has Ridley Scott returning as director, and as a result, it has the same type of, like, slow tension building that the first two Alien movies had. There are some legitimately creepy sequences in this film. I think that the squid birthing sequence is one of the scariest sequences in any of these movies. I liked the protagonist and her kind of journey to try and find who created humanity and her desperation to understand where she came from. I thought that was interesting. And then the best part of this movie is Michael Fassbender as David. I think that David is quite easily the second most interesting character in the entire Alien franchise behind Ripley, and I'll talk more about that when we get to Alien Covenant, because he's also in that movie. Overall, it's not exactly my thing, but I can't really say that Prometheus is a bad movie in the same way that I can say that about Alien Cubed and Alien Resurrection. Number 4, the newest movie on this list, Alien Romulus. So it was quite interesting going from Prometheus and Covenant to this movie, because Prometheus and Covenant are insanely experimental films where when you hear Alien movie, those films are not the types of movies that you think of. Like, they go off in a really bizarre, weird direction for this franchise. Romulus isn't like that. This movie is a lot more of just a straightforward alien movie where there's a bunch of people who go off on a ship they shouldn't have gone off on, and a bunch of xenomorphs come and kill them. It's a lot more of just a classic alien horror movie, and I actually kind of liked that. I enjoyed this movie for a few reasons. For one thing, I genuinely cared about the characters. Like, I would say I cared about the characters in this movie more than I have cared about any other characters in the franchise since the first two films. I especially liked the main girl and the android. Those two characters, I actually really got invested in their connection with each other. I thought it was interesting to see an android in this franchise who acts a lot more human, and I really, really liked how they kind of had that sibling connection. Like, they literally refer to each other as brother and sister. And yeah, I really, really liked those two together. It's a very creative movie, in my opinion, where it, like, not necessarily because it introduces new concepts to this franchise. It really doesn't. But it plays with old concepts in a way that I thought was really interesting. The movie is able to create like a lot of very tense sequences where it takes a look at face huggers and how creepy they are, and it's like, how can we make them creepier? Let's have like 1,000 of them running at the main characters at once. And how about we have this whole sequence where the characters have to be super, super quiet because the facehuggers can only hear you. So they have to be super, super quiet and walk through this room that has like 100 of them. Like, that's creepy. That's a creative way to use already established concepts. And then, oh, let's have this sequence where the main characters are fighting xenomorphs in zero gravity, and they shoot a bunch of them, and then suddenly they realize, oh crap, now the acid blood is coming right at me in zero gravity. And you have this sequence where they basically have an obstacle course of acid blood. Like, that's creative. That was well done for me. And then, like, the whole, like, third act of this movie gets very, very weird in the way that it ties in to the stories of Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I don't want to spoil anything because it goes off in a very weird direction, but I was on board with what it did. The problem with Romulus is this movie has a pretty massive fan service problem that I wasn't really that cool with. Throughout the whole movie, you have this android. This might be spoilers. I don't actually know if this was shown in the trailers at all for this movie, but you have an android who is basically he has the AI face of Ian Holm, a deceased actor who was in the original Alien movie as the android in that movie, Ash. And I'm not crazy about this whole thing that we've been doing in the modern day where we're resurrecting actors using like CGI. I'm not crazy about that, and so I wasn't really crazy about the Ian Holm android. But then that's not even the worst that this movie gets with fan service. There are scenes in this movie where they quote lines from the first two movies verbatim, and I found that to be so cringy. Like, spoilers, but when the android, I think his name was Andy, says, "Get away from her, you B word," and then they pause as if the audience is supposed to clap, I actually cringed during that scene. I did not like that. That was so dumb. So, yeah, I think that it's a good movie. It's definitely a very classic, good movie in this franchise. It definitely has a fan service problem. Number 3, Alien Covenant. So this movie doesn't actually have a lot of fans. This is one of the more divisive movies in the franchise. But to be honest, I watched this movie, and as soon as I finished it, I thought, that was kind of great. Like, I actually really enjoyed Alien Covenant, and I don't fully get the hate that this movie gets. I think that this movie is the third scariest movie in the franchise, just outside of the first two. This movie, once again, has Ridley Scott directing it, and he is just a master at just slow burning and building tension and then having it like build to this explosive point. I thought that the xenomorphs were terrifying in this movie, especially because like they really managed to sell the terror on the faces of the actors. Like during the scene where towards the start of the movie the xenomorph is like born, I thought that that was one of the scariest xenomorph birthing sequences in this entire franchise. I thought that like the whole sequence where the xenomorphs are running around in the field and all of the characters are trying to shoot them and they're all getting picked off, that was an incredibly creepy, scary sequence. The entire sequence at the end of the movie with the xenomorph on the ship, and like that one sequence where it kills the two people in the shower. Like, this movie has a lot of very scary sequences that I thought were very effective. In general, I cared about the characters in this movie. I was invested in their goal because they just kind of want to find like a new planet to live on. Like, that's their entire goal throughout this whole movie, and it leads them into this very dangerous rabbit trail where most of them die, and I felt bad for them. I genuinely liked the characters. None of that really matters that much. All of that stuff is great, but that's not the main reason I love this movie. The main reason is David, played by Michael Fassbender. I thought that he was an interesting character in Prometheus, since he's kind of an android who doesn't fully know how to feel about his creators, and that kind of ties into the themes of that movie. I thought that was interesting. In this movie, spoiler alert, he's a full-on villain. Like, he is the main villain of the movie, and he is the best non-xenomorph villain in this franchise. It's not even close. I thought that David was so creepy, so interesting. This movie gets philosophical with a lot of the things that he's doing, but it doesn't like beat you over the head with it the same way that Prometheus does. I thought that David was just a fantastic character. Like I said, he's my second favorite character in the franchise behind Ripley. So, yeah, I absolutely loved that element of this movie, and that is the main reason that I liked this movie. Just because of David being an incredibly creepy, unsettling villain. I don't even feel like I really have to say anything else. That's why I like Covenant. That was the best element of this film. Time to get into the top two. As much as I liked the Covenant and Romulus, and as much as I respected Prometheus, none of them even came close to the top two. You all know what the top two are. Really, the biggest question is, which one of the top two do I prefer? Because people have differing opinions on this. I think that both of these movies are 10 out of 10 masterpieces, but for me, second place has to be Alien. Even though Alien is second place, I still absolutely love this movie, and I already kind of talked about it in my horror movie video, but I just think that this film is absolutely brilliant. Where the first half of the movie is a slow burn where you're just following this crew of people in space as they investigate into this strange new planet, and you're just slowly building up the tension. It just manages to unsettle you with this creepy atmosphere and imagery as you get onto this planet. There's some creepy elements with the eggs, and then when the face hugger pops out, that's really, really creepy. And it's just like this slow burn as you're going through all of these creepy elements. You like the characters, like I really like a lot of the characters in this movie, especially Ripley. I thought that they were interesting, and you're just slowly establishing the characters, slowly making these realistic mistakes for things that are going to go wrong later. And then halfway through the movie, all of that tension just explodes out as you have this shocking sequence where the one dude, Kane, the xenomorph, pops out of his chest. It is a horrifying, gory, insane sequence that catches you insanely off guard. I feel like people have, like, nowadays kind of downplay that scene because we're so used to that being the way that the xenomorphs, like, are created. But that's, like, a really, really creepy element of this franchise that is very creatively messed up, and I just think that it's absolutely brilliant. And then from there, this movie becomes, as some of the people who worked on it have described it, a slasher movie in space, as the xenomorph kind of picks off each of our main characters one by one. They really sell the hopelessness throughout this movie as you're truly unsure of how they can beat this monster. It's a hunter who's constantly 2 steps ahead of them. Eventually you get like these twists and turns as you learn that Ash is actually an android and is kind of the villain of the movie, which I thought was a fantastic, masterfully done twist. And it all builds to this final sequence where it's Ripley having to outsmart the xenomorph as she's the last one left alive apart from the cat. Like, this is just an absolutely brilliantly crafted horror movie. It made it to number 1 on my list of the 20 most iconic horror movies because it's just such a brilliantly made, brilliantly done film in my opinion. And so I don't really have anything else to say other than that. Just Alien is an incredible film. But for me, I liked Aliens a little bit more. So Aliens is number one. This movie basically just takes everything that I liked about Alien and builds on it and makes it a little bit better, where in this movie, it's as simple as the title. Instead of there being one alien, there are now multiple aliens, which creates an entirely new sense of horror, as now there's just a sheer amount of them. And you saw what one of them can do in the first movie, and so it becomes even more terrifying in this film. Throughout the first half of the film, the characters are actually very, very confident as Ripley leads this entire, squadron of trained soldiers onto this planet to kill the xenomorphs, and the soldiers seem incredibly confident because for them, they've done stuff like this 100 times before, and you kind of start to let your guard down. And then at halfway through the movie, once again, they got this slow building tension that just explodes as they head into the xenomorph nest, and it quickly becomes clear, nah, they are not prepared for this. The xenomorphs are still way stronger than them, and they just pick off almost all of the soldiers right off the bat, only leaving a few alive. I think that this movie is just super tense. I don't think it's as scary as the first Alien, but it comes close just because of how many xenomorphs they are and how scary the xenomorphs have been established to be. And so you have just these phenomenal sequences where Ripley and Newt realize that they're locked in a room with two facehuggers. That's terrifying. They're wondering where the aliens are. Their radar is saying that they're right there in the room with them, but they can't see them. And then suddenly they realize they're in the ceiling. This movie is brilliant with the way that it builds tension. It's a very scary movie, in my opinion. And then the best thing about this movie is that I think this movie has the most compelling characters in the franchise, where Ripley is the most compelling that she ever is in this series, in this movie, as she's kind of dealing with the trauma of what happened in the first Alien movie, and then throughout the movie, she meets this kid, Newt, and she has to put on a brave face for Newt and become kind of a mother figure for her. I absolutely loved Newt. I thought that she was adorable. I loved her connection with Ripley, and I thought that in many ways was kind of the heart of this movie, and it leads to this third act that I thought was super satisfying, as Ripley ends up accidentally, they end up having to leave Newt behind, and Ripley goes back in alone to fight the Xenomorph Queen and save Newt, which I just thought was an amazing sequence. It's super satisfying. Other characters in this movie I thought were also great. I loved all of the soldiers, in particular Hicks. I was sad when most of the soldiers died. I really liked Bishop. I really hated Paul Reiser's character. I think that he is easily one of the most hateable non-xenomorph villains in the franchise. So, yeah, for me, Aliens is just absolute perfection, and so's Alien. This franchise has two absolutely perfect movies. I just prefer Aliens a little bit more. So there you go. That is my ranking of all 7 Alien movies. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below what's your ranking of the Alien movies, and see ya, movie fans.